There is a feeling you've been carrying for far too long, but no matter how many times you've tried to name it, it slips through your fingers. It's not quite stress. It's not anxiety either. It's quieter than that, more subtle, yet more corrosive. It feels like a silent knot in your chest, a kind of emotional fatigue that doesn't come from physical exertion, but from a prolonged absence of peace. You've bowed your head so many times out of kindness, out of fear, out of habit, that you've forgotten what it feels like to hold it high. And tragically, the worst part is that you've come to believe this is normal. You were taught that endurance was a virtue, that being good meant being silent, that if you were patient enough, if you gave enough, loved enough, forgave enough, everything would eventually be okay. But that was a lie, a dangerous one. What really happened is that you became an emotional sponge, soaking up everything others couldn't handle. You became the safe place for their storms, the dumping ground for their chaos. You allowed so much for so long that you forgot your own limits. Somewhere along the way, you began to doubt yourself. Every time something felt wrong, you second-guessed your own intuition. Was it really a problem? Or were you just too sensitive? But here's the truth. No, it wasn't sensitivity. It was your intuition, your inner self, screaming for air. Carl Jung, long before the modern self-help movement, saw this pattern in the human soul. He spent his life digging into the depths of the psyche, uncovering the shadows we try to ignore. And what he found wasn't that we are destroyed by massive traumas alone, it's the daily poisons that wear us down. The small wounds, the quiet compromises, the boundaries we let slide, the gestures we excuse, the emotions we repress. Jung warned that what we refuse to confront within ourselves doesn't go away. It festers. It transforms into something darker, something that begins to rot us from the inside. This video is not here to comfort you. It's not here to wrap you in cozy platitudes. It is here to awaken you, to shake you from the trance of acceptance, because what you've been tolerating silently, constantly is not harmless. It's a form of psychological erosion. And Jung identified 7 specific behaviors that are particularly dangerous, not just because they are morally wrong, but because they are a direct threat to your identity, your dignity, and your mental health. These behaviors are insidious. They don't come wrapped in warnings. They come disguised as affection, as loyalty, as humor, as love. And that's the danger, because once you accept them, even once they begin to repeat, and every repetition chips away a little more of who you are. That's why you're watching this. Not because you're curious, not because you're bored, but because something deep inside you already knows. You can't keep going like this. You're here because your soul is tired, because you're ready to name what you've buried, to stop letting it slide, to start choosing yourself again. And yes, this isn't just about what others have done to you. This is also about what you've done to yourself. Because some of these patterns, you've repeated them too, not out of malice, but because no one showed you a better way. But now it's time to see it all, clearly, brutally, and maybe for the first time. Let's begin with the first behavior, covert emotional manipulation. It doesn't yell. It doesn't demand. It arrives quietly, almost tenderly. It says things like, "I'm just saying this because I care," or "If you really loved me, you would." These phrases, coded in concern, are actually attempts to control. Over time, they make you question yourself, your choices, your reactions, even your reality. And this is what makes a skilled manipulator so dangerous. They don't need to overpower you. They only need you to start doubting yourself. And once that seed of doubt is planted, it grows like ivy, wrapping itself around every decision you make. This isn't love. It isn't friendship. It's control. And often it comes from the people closest to you, which makes it even harder to see. Because love is supposed to feel safe. So, when the person who loves you also manipulates you, you confuse loyalty with silence. Carl Jung said it best: people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And what better way to avoid themselves than by distorting yours? When manipulation becomes normalized, the next tactic is ridicule. But not direct insults, that would be too obvious. No, what comes next is humiliation disguised as humor. A sarcastic comment in front of others. A mocking laugh after you open up. A joke that stings. Everyone else laughs, and you force yourself to laugh too. Because if you don't, you'll be labeled as bitter, sensitive, difficult, and so you play along while another piece of your self-worth gets chipped away. But here's the truth. Repeated mockery, even in jest, is symbolic violence. Jung knew that the unconscious doesn't differentiate between a joke and a truth repeated often enough. Your mind absorbs it, your heart feels it, and you begin to see yourself through the lens of those mockeries, less than annoying too much. And then comes the darkest tactic of all, gaslighting. This is where reality itself is twisted. They say things never happened. They call you dramatic. They act like you're crazy. Slowly, your grip on what's real starts to slip. And the worst part? You start to adapt to their version of events. Jung called this internal betrayal the moment you begin to distrust your own emotions, your own intuition. Once that happens, you're no longer living your life. You're living theirs. But it doesn't stop there. The next behavior is emotional invalidation. You express your pain and they roll their eyes. You speak your truth and they minimize it. It's not that bad. You're overreacting. Here we go again. And with every invalidation, a message is sent. Your emotions are a problem. They're inconvenient. And eventually you stop sharing. You mute yourself. You become quieter, smaller. Jung warned us. What we repress doesn't disappear, it rots. It returns as anxiety, as sadness, as anger that erupts at the wrong time in the wrong way. You don't heal by ignoring your pain. You only become further lost. And then, when they've manipulated you, mocked you, confused you, and silenced you, comes the final blow. Silent contempt. Not words, not actions, just cold absence. A look that avoids you. A message left unanswered. The slow, deliberate way they erase your presence without saying a thing, and it cuts deeper than all the rest, because you know, without a doubt, that you are being punished, but no one will admit it. You're being erased without explanation, and that kind of silence screams the loudest. At this stage, you've likely changed. You don't trust like you used to. You don't feel safe in your skin. You question everything. You exist in a kind of emotional exile. Jung warned, what you deny subjugates you. What you accept transforms you. And everything you've endured without acknowledgement, without naming, has only grown stronger. Until now. Because now you are seeing it, naming it, feeling it. And once something has been named, it loses its power. This is the moment. Not just to feel the pain, but to reclaim who you are beneath it. Beneath all the manipulation, all the silence, all the confusion. You are not here to carry others' unhealed wounds. You are not here to be the mirror in which others avoid seeing themselves. You are not here to be reshaped by guilt or silence or fear. You are here to remember who you were before the world told you to be quiet. And now that you've seen it, you can't unsee it. And that is your power. Two more behaviors remain, the most dangerous ones, the most insidious. These are not just harmful traits, they are infections of the soul. If you don't recognize them in time, they won't just hurt you, they will transform you. Up until now, we've talked about manipulation, distortion, the erosion of your identity by others. But what comes next is darker, far more corrosive. These final behaviors don't just act against you, they act through you. They seep into your decisions, infiltrate your instincts, twist the lens through which you see yourself and the world. They make you complicit in your own unraveling. This isn't just about survival anymore. It's about contamination. And unless you confront them, you risk not only being destroyed, but becoming one of them. The sixth behavior is perhaps the most celebrated, the most socially disguised, and paradoxically the most destructive: the normalization of self-sacrifice as a virtue. From a young age, we're conditioned to believe that love is synonymous with giving up parts of ourselves. We're told that putting others first is noble, that setting aside our needs is mature, that sacrifice is the highest proof of affection. And so, We internalize this idea that to love is to diminish ourselves. We disappear in plain sight. We suppress desires, silence instincts, bend our boundaries, and shrink our presence, all in the name of being good. But there's a truth few dare to speak. Not everything you do out of love is healthy. Not every act of tolerance is peace. Sometimes what you call sacrifice is submission. It's fear. It's the learned habit of erasing yourself. Carl Jung understood this better than anyone. He spoke of the self as the true center of the psyche, the sacred core of who you are. Anything that drags you away from that center, be it toxic love, people-pleasing, or martyrdom, fragments you. It pulls you into roles, into masks, into survival personas that ultimately disconnect you from your essence. You become a distorted echo of the person you were meant to be. And the world? The world applauds you for it. For being agreeable, for staying quiet, for never being a burden. But no one asks you, when was it your turn? When did you stop being someone to yourself? Perpetual sacrifice is not love. It is self-abandonment. And the cruelest irony is that when this sacrifice becomes your identity, you vanish. You lose your voice, your will, your capacity to say no. You become a ghost, haunting your own life. And what happens when someone completely loses themselves? When they no longer speak their truth, when their needs are permanently muted? That leads us to the seventh and final behavior, the bottom of the pit, the acceptance of contempt as the price for belonging. This is the final surrender, the psychic death Jung spoke of. It's the moment when, after enduring years of manipulation and validation and self-neglect, you begin to believe that mistreatment is normal, that being ignored is safer than being truly seen, that emotional scraps are the best you deserve. You begin to justify the unjustifiable. You stop questioning. You stop resisting. You silence yourself not just to avoid conflict, but because you've convinced yourself that your silence is peace. And here lies the tragedy. You believe that belonging, even at the cost of your dignity, is better than standing alone with your truth. You adapt to pain because the alternative authenticity feels too terrifying, too uncertain. This is not survival. This is surrender. Jung described this state as a severing from the self, a total disconnection from one's inner truth. You no longer seek joy, you seek numbness. You don't live, you persist. And all because you believe the lie that being loved meant being small. But listen closely now. Nothing, no relationship, no community, no love, is worth betraying yourself every day. Loneliness is difficult, yes, but living surrounded by shadows that consume you is hell. You are not born to beg for crumbs. You are here to inhabit yourself fully, to take your rightful space in the world without shame or apology. And if you've made it this far, if you felt the sting of every word, it's because these behaviors have left their mark on you. Maybe not all at once, maybe not always, but enough that you recognize the feeling of looking into the mirror and seeing someone you barely recognize. You know what it's like to shrink yourself to keep the peace, to walk on eggshells, to keep silent so others can stay comfortable. You felt the ache of being small in spaces where you should be at your most powerful. Now you know. You see, these 7 behaviors, these 7 poisons, were never just inflicted upon you. They required your silent consent, not because you're weak, but because you were taught to confuse suffering with love. Jung didn't list these dynamics to inspire pity. He documented them as warnings, siren calls across the fog for those ready to wake up. And now that you've heard them, you can't unhear them. You can't unsee the reflection. The only question is, what will you do with this truth? Because here's the twist that most people don't expect. Most people will change nothing. Even after recognizing the patterns, even after feeling the pain, they will return to the same places, the same people, the same slow self-destruction. Why? Because it's comfortable. Because sleep hurts less than facing the void of becoming authentic. Because when you finally break free, you lose things, people, habits, identities. And that feels like death. But it's not. It's rebirth. And everything you lose in that process, you never truly had it. You were already losing yourself to keep it. So, If you're still here, if something inside you is still burning, don't let it go out. You may not have all the answers yet. You may not know how to begin. But, with a kind of animal certainty that something inside you wants to break free. That flicker, that quiet no more, that is the beginning of healing. But make no mistake, this journey is not about blaming others. It's not about becoming a professional victim or turning your pain into a badge. It's about brutal self-honesty, about standing in front of the mirror and asking, where have I tolerated the intolerable? Who have I excused again and again? What part of me have I erased just to be allowed to stay? This isn't a self-help video. It's not here to soothe you. It's a mirror, clear, cold, and merciless. And if it hurts to look into it, that's not because you're broken. It's because you're finally seeing what you've avoided. And if you dare to change, if you choose to stop tolerating the poison, then yes, you'll lose people. You'll be called selfish, you'll be misunderstood, but what you gain will be real, solid, untouchable, you. And that is the only foundation worth building a life upon. Jung didn't write to comfort, he wrote to awaken. And now you've awakened. Don't go back to sleep. Don't close your eyes just because it's easier. Because here's a truth no one tells you. True power is not in making the world respect you. It's in no longer needing their respect to stand tall. If even one part of this spoke to you, do something for yourself. Declare it. Write it in the comments. Say it aloud. What you tolerate buries you. Let the world hear that you will no longer swallow poison with a smile, that your peace is no longer for sale. And if you want more raw truth, more unfiltered psychology used as a weapon for liberation, then come back. Subscribe, not for me, for you. Every piece of content will be another arrow against what's quietly killing you. There's no hollow motivation here. There's only clarity. And in a world that trades authenticity for approval, clarity is rare gold. So turn off this video, but don't turn off what just lit up inside of you. Walk differently, look differently, tolerate less, live more. Because once you wake up, really wake up, you never sleep the same again.